Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast with Borg, Betz, and a Baller.
Welcome in. It's Wednesday, August 21st, here on the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. That's right, my voice is shot, but I am rejoined by one of the B&B boys. Betz, you're here.
I'm back, man. And you're here physically, but I feel like just, I asked you before the show, 0 to 100%, where are you at? And you couldn't even give me an answer. I'm not sure you're actually here for the show today. So we'll see if I can remember, A, how to do this, and B, if you can make it through an hour show with the current state that you're in. So I'll let you fill the people in on where you're at, just to peek behind the curtain for those that would like to know this information. I got on a call with Kyle yesterday. We're chatting about the upcoming season, how the last 3 weeks have been with me off work. And he's like, I'm just grinding, man. I'm just trying to get through. I'm like, brother, we got 20 more weeks of 5 shows a week for the main show. DFS and betting coming down the pipeline. Dynasty. I mean, we're just getting started. And Kyle is limping at this point, folks. So I'm fresh, ready to go. I don't know about you, Kyle.
I need this. I need you, Betz, because you can probably hear it in my voice, but I came down with a fever. But it's a rookie fever show. So I feel like I timed it out really well. And so Betz is going to give us a Greg Jennings where he's going to put the team on his back. He's just going to go for it. But I think this episode will be helpful for people to have a nuanced approach to rookies. And specifically, we saw the rookies in preseason week 2, some really great highlights. And then there's also some overreaction. So I don't know. I feel like you get to come right back in and kind of like, has it been weird? Just like, you've looked at football, but like, dude, you've been like sitting on the bench for the footballers for a while.
Really? Yes. People have asked in Discord or on Twitter, like someone even said, like, how was your vacation? I was like, dude, that was the furthest thing from a vacation. 3 kids under 3, just survive in advance. That's where we're at right now. But yeah, man, I've been trying to stay plugged in as much as I can. Still updating on the back end, like some of the injury stuff too, especially. So I'm at least plugged into all that. I did catch some of week 1 preseason, actually caught a decent bit of week 2. So we'll break that stuff down today. Talk about some of these rookies because I feel like a lot has changed since, the NFL draft. And of course, when we did our prospect breakdown series, but it's so easy, I think, this time of year in fantasy football to just sort of like zoom in on like the here and now, but like kind of forget your priors, right? Like we talked about all these guys for months. Now we see them on a field and sometimes your opinion changes quite a bit when maybe it should or maybe it shouldn't. So we'll talk about this up today.
I think with film, and I'm just going to stay in that lane with film, when you see something, it kind of confirms like, oh, I already thought this about this player. When you can also flip it and kind of ask the question, what am I not seeing with this player? And so with Caleb Williams, I did a deep dive because how many plays do we get? What, like 4 or 5 drives? That's it?
He played a decent amount in the second game.
Yeah, he played all the way up till the very end of the first half. So there's a lot to say. And also, you missed a pretty cool season of Fantasy Football World called Fat Keenan. So what are your thoughts on that?
Is it over? I thought it was still here.
I hope so.
Yeah, I left. Keenan was still the GOAT. I came back, and apparently he's playing fullback now for the Bears. I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll talk about the Bears, I think, a little bit more in detail today when we talk about Caleb, and we're going to talk about this week on the DFS and betting show a little bit about what to do with the Bears in that style of format. But Shane Waldron, man, every time Gerald Everett is getting a target this season, you're taking away an opportunity for one of your best skill players to touch the football. And we just did this last year with JSN, where it's like this offense should throw a lot, this should be great. And Waldron's kind of Waldroning again, right? With like these 2 tight end sets. And so, and we don't want to overreact to just small sample size of preseason, but we had a pretty big sample size of all last year, him doing that stuff. So I'm kind of cooling on like overall what Chicago could be, or I think the floor is lower than the public thinks. I think the ceiling is sky high if Caleb hits and he's him, which he could be. But man, every time Gerald Everett sees a target, I'm just like, what are we doing here?
It is funny because Everett has been with Waldron for 4 years now, all the way back to the Rams and then
That's
the Seahawks.
His boy.
Yeah, it's his boy. And then Cole Kmet, they are paying him the highest base salary of any tight end in football this year. So I don't really know.
He got an extension. Was that last offseason he got an extension?
So
yeah,
he's making a ton of money, 6th highest cap hit. I don't really know what the plan is. But yeah, you're right. I watched preseason and it's like, okay, Gerald Everett, 3-yard little turnaround, falls down.
Got to set the tone, baby.
Yep.
Got to make Rome Odunze earn it, right? I mean, he's a rookie. Come on.
He looked fun. Like regardless of what you think he'll do in year one, it's like, oh, this is going to be a fun player in the NFL. If you want to get all of our takes, you can give them the 2024 Ultimate Draft Kit. We just started releasing some new stuff when it comes to our Ultimate Dashboard. We also just opened up the Megala Bowl, which is the largest fantasy football tournament in the world. So if you want to be a part of that, you can either get the Ultimate Draft Kit or become a Foot Clan member, and then you can be a part of the Megala Bowl. You'll get to draft with us. I don't know about you, but I feel like I always have the worst injury luck in that league, and I just end up getting destroyed by other listeners.
So don't draft. Let's see. Jahmyr Gibbs. Who else is injured right now? Christian McCaffrey. It seems like everyone going in the first round of redraft leagues right now is either injured or holding out for their contracts. So the wild, wild west, man. This should be fun. Yeah, I'm going to draft a team this year. I took last year off. Immediately had FOMO. Like I was like, oh, I've done this a couple years, but like I'm so maxed out with leagues. And then every week went by, I was like, I have serious FOMO of the Megala Bowl. So yeah, if you want to draft against Kyle and I and the guys, I mean, come on over.
Did you get any injury stuff while you were out where you were like, oh no, I leave for a couple weeks, I come back and people are spewing this injury stuff? Like we had a lot of stuff with injury prone that popped up with some of these players. And I was like, I wish Betz was here for this.
Unfortunately, the day after my daughter's birth, Justin Herbert has a tear in his plantar fascia. I'm like, come on, man. Like all that stuff happened. Like there was the Geno scare, there was the Justin Herbert injury, the Christian McCaffrey injury. Like all these things happen. I'm not kidding, within hours of when she was born, and it was just like clockwork. It's like, of course, the time that I'm not around my computer or phone or whatever, all this stuff happens. But that's training camp, man. Every year it is the same story. It happens the first like 2 weeks, right? Because that's the acclimation period of like these guys were obviously training in the off season, but they're not doing football things, football related stress on the body. So you see the acclimation injuries all the time in the first couple of weeks. But we're back now, so I'm ready for anything that comes my way.
All right, let's talk about these rookies.
Rookie Fever.
Hopefully you are staying with me. Maybe you hate my voice. I hate it right now, trust me. But well-timed with the Rookie Fever, and well-timed to talk about our process as a show. So Betz, why don't you explain where we go from February when we start scouting the NFL draft, and then right before the season, we're getting a little bit more information, but I feel like a lot of times we can overvalue what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, we try to take both approaches. Like there's a lot of folks that really care about the film. There's a lot of folks that care a lot about the analytics and, you know, the production and the stats and all that sort of stuff. We try to marriage the two and care a lot about both. So in the UDK plus in the Dynasty Pass, we have all the production profiles that from a top-down view, like kind of lets you know where these guys stand just from an analytical standpoint. And then we watch every player, you know, for the course of weeks and weeks and weeks and months leading up to the NFL draft. And then you add in that third piece of the puzzle, which is the draft capital, which of course has a huge impact on rookie hit rates and that sort of thing. And then you kind of have like your takes set, I would say, or like your evaluation set. And then there's like the fourth layer that comes in after that. And it's like, well, how does this actually all fit together? Because you put different players in different systems and different coaching staffs, and better or worse outcomes are going to happen, right? Like guys that go play with Sean McVay, good stuff happens, right? Like, I don't know, Puka happens if it's not with Sean McVay and the Rams and Matthew Stafford. So landing spot matters, coaching staffs matter. And now we're seeing some of that stuff kind of tie together and how these guys could or not necessarily get off to a hot start as rookies, which, you know, we want to take a long view, but also like, remember what happens in the next 8 weeks, 9 weeks does carry a ton of weight into moving forward into next year's Dynasty process, where we do the startup rankings again, and like things change full circle, right? Like the Quentin Johnston experience is the perfect example of that. So we don't want to get too short-sighted, but I do think trying to identify like what could happen over the next, like I said, 8, 9, 10 weeks is super important for a player's early season or early career rather Dynasty value.
I really like the team level part that you brought up, because I think at the end of the day, you can have a take on a player. You can be a fan of that organization, of that team. You can wear their laundry. And then you actually have to mix in what happens from a play caller, from the skill set of everybody else there. So team level projections and team level tendencies really do matter. Like the Cardinals, I was doing some research. It's like they're adding extra possessions because they're going for it on fourth. They're going for it on 2-point conversions, way more than the rest of the league. And those kind of things add up. So the team level stuff, I want to make sure that we blend that in because all of us are going to say, like, look at Caleb Williams, look at the highlights. It was awesome. So for quarterbacks, we're going to start there, move through the other positions. What are you looking for scouting eyeballs wise in year one, or at least in this first, 6 to 8 weeks?
Yeah, I think just when you're looking at a rookie quarterback, obviously the range of outcomes is massive. You have the scenarios where the top end outcome when they hit and they're a locked in starter in this league for 8+ years, or you have the experience where they bust pretty early and you are hanging on for dear life, i.e. Bryce Young of this year, right? Like if it doesn't happen this year for Bryce, it's not over, but the hit rate is going to be just so unlikely. So what I'm looking for with these guys is decision making, getting the ball out on time, maneuvering in the pocket, understanding how to read NFL defenses. That is something that is going to, I think, personally be sticky over the course of a player's career. Justin Fields coming out, tons of talent, tons of upside, can throw the deep ball, can run. All those things for fantasy are awesome, but we're kind of seeing now over the course of years, like the guy just like can't process an NFL defense. And I think you saw that I'm just calling it how it is, Kyle, is still struggling with that. And, like eventually the NFL is like, okay, buddy, like we got to move on kind of thing. And you're kind of already getting that a little bit. Now he could rebound this year and like take over for us and be awesome for fantasy. But as far as like confidence level in Justin Fields being a starting quarterback in 3 years, like it's zero. Like I have no confidence in that, right? So you need these guys to be able to process the defense, deliver the ball out on time, and be accurate with it, which is kind of a lot of what like CJ Stroud did last year.
Yeah, CJ Stroud last year, if you remember, one of the things we loved was the intermediate area of the field, and it translated to Stroud having the highest percentage of targets to the middle of the field. So Nico, Tank, I mean, they just did work over and over and over there. And that's something that I care about. If you've listened for a while on the Dynasty podcast, you're probably sick of me talking about intermediate throws, but it just matters so much. The other thing I care about is your command of the pocket. And I did a sick thing, Betz. Just a very, very like, everyone's hooting and hollering about what Caleb Williams did. And there were 2 incredible plays. I posted all of his dropbacks from week 2, but then I flipped it and I asked the question, and I want to get your opinion first. Like, does outside the pocket matter for fantasy? Like, I don't know the answer to that. And so I started doing some digging and research, but how often do those plays happen was my question. And I didn't know the answer, but like when we look at Mahomes, we look at Rodgers, and then people want to like connect the dots with Caleb. They're like, oh, this is just his superpower and it happens all the time. So do you have any thoughts on him outside the pocket before we get into the numbers?
I think what you're asking is just like his style of play, or for what we've seen in college, and then like, I mean, super small sample, but preseason of the NFL is like the special moments that happen outside the pocket are truly elite. Like hard to kind of wrap your head around like how good those are. The throw to Rome Odunze, unreal. Like on the move to his left, throwing across his body, drops it in the bucket, perfectly thrown ball to Rome. That shows you how good he can be. But there's all the other times too where he's like out of the pocket and the play breaks down and he holds the ball too long or stuff like that. So I think there's going to be a learning curve with some of that stuff with Caleb and how it translates from you can get away with it a lot easier in college to the NFL. But we've seen already in a very small sample, like when it hits, it's going to be very, very special.
Yeah, Bryce Young, I know people won't like bringing it up, but we did have a number 1 overall pick whose superpower when he came out was when things are off script. Right? Like, I think that was the part we love. Like, he can just make things happen. And my point in his evaluation was it's really fun when those things hit. When they don't hit, can he be comfortable inside the pocket? And can he be comfortable against zone? And I've said this before. He threw as many touchdowns against zone as me. Like, that's
and
crazy.
You, the listener.
That's just wild. Like, an entire year and an NFL quarterback could not throw a touchdown pass against zone. Now, granted, he didn't throw a touchdown pass longer than 18 yards. So inside the 20, you're not getting a ton of zone. But with Caleb Williams, we love the plays where he's dancing around. I would say his footwork is not as polished as you would think. Like it's not Mahomes, it's not Rodgers. There's still a lot of room for him to grow because I feel like there's still like a clunky part of him where he's setting his feet, and because he's so comfortable being off balance. In the NFL, when those happen, it's awesome. They just aren't repeatable. And I found this stat. last year, plays outside the pocket accounted for just 13% of quarterback fantasy points, passing fantasy points. So when it happens, it's cool, but majority of the time you're looking at a player, can they be consistent in the pocket? And I would say in that game, it wasn't great inside the pocket, just to throw cold water on people. Like, that's my job, right? Is just to be like kind of negative.
What's funny is, I watched part of that game live and I saw that throw, and like everybody else, I was like, oh my goodness, like this was incredible. And then my second thought was, Kyle is going to somehow create a spin on how this was wrong or something, just like, because you're so realistic. And I think that's really refreshing for a lot of people, is like, we need to take a step back and be like, okay, A, this is the preseason. B, this is not going to be his career of doing that every single play. Like, you need to do the other stuff really well to stick around this league and have success. But it was just funny that was my thought. But yeah, man, I kind of agree with you. I think a lot of what we've seen through the preseason is what we saw in college. And I've already said the special moments are really special, but there are times when it breaks down and, you kind of got to tuck it and run, or you got to take your check down and move on. So that's kind of where I'm at with Caleb. But yeah, I think overall you've seen flashes that if you have him, like if you took him in a Superflex League 101 or 102, like you should be excited about the future of what Caleb can do in this offense with the weapons he has. And just him and Rome together for years is going to be so fun.
What would you say his ceiling is for rushing yards in a season? I'm like, can he get to 500 yards?
The number that came to mind for me was like 450, like ceiling outcome. I suppose he could get to 500. It's just, I don't think that's what he's, and this isn't necessarily right or wrong, I just don't think that's what he's trying to do when he drops back and he drifts out of the pocket or spins out and tries to, make a play. Like, he's keeping his eyes downfield, which isn't necessarily bad. It's just that's kind of how he plays, and he wants to attack downfield. He's not necessarily looking to get out and then like Jaden Daniels just go. He's not trying to do that. So he can run, but it's not his calling card. I would say probably capped at around like 450 or so is my take.
Okay. I think with quarterbacks, we just need to look at them on a spectrum of, can they, avoid sacks? Like, you saw him dancing around. It's like, wow, this is magical. This is awesome. And this is the highlight play. He also took a sack earlier in one of the drives, and they went 3 and out on a couple of them. So it's not just, do they take sacks, but it's also, do they have negative plays? Do they turn the ball over? Those are all the things that we care about for young quarterbacks. And fun fact though, did you see, I posted this, who led all quarterbacks in percentage of fantasy points outside the pocket last year?
It's going to be someone I'll never guess. Who is it?
Joe Flacco.
That cannot be real.
Yes.
Has that man ever been outside the pocket?
That's what I'm saying. Like, you think back on those Amari Cooper touchdowns, like against the Texans. Remember those long bomb ones? He rolled to his left, planted his feet, and then chucked it. So he had 5 touchdowns, like rolling. So Joe Burrow was second, Purdy was third, Russell Wilson 4, and then Will Levis 5. Percentage of fantasy points outside the pocket.
It's a fun little stat.
Yeah, I find it not as sticky though as inside the pocket. So let's go to Jaden Daniels real quick before we break. Does it suck that Cliff is farting around so far? Like, I mean, legitimately, their offense, the scheme has not looked fun at all. And they have players there to do it.
What's hilarious is, remember when DeAndre Hopkins was with Arizona with Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler, and we all would make fun of his route bush right on the left side. It was like, you only line up on the left. That's all you do, DeAndre Hopkins, and you will run curls and short area targets. And Hayden, or not Hayden Wink, sorry, it was Ian Harditz, Fantasy Life, posted that 28 of 29 of Terry McLaurin's snaps this year have been on the left side. It's like Cliff is back. And then Hayden Winks posted on Twitter from Underdog that the Commanders have called 19 screens so far in the preseason, and only one other team has done more than 10. So like, Cliff is kind of just, this is who he is, this is what he does, and this is what we're doing. So I'm excited about Jaden Daniels, obviously, for fantasy. His rushing ability, we know he can throw deep. He did that a ton with Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. at LSU. The problem for me is that we just haven't really seen it yet in the preseason of like true dropbacks, because everything is get the ball out quick, screens, stuff like that, where it's like, let's just make it easy. Let's give you the easy button throws right now, which for a rookie quarterback, maybe that's a good thing, right? That's not necessarily wrong. It's just that we haven't really seen like a true drop back. You need to process the defense and then make a decision. It's all been kind of easy button stuff for him so far. Again, small sample size, but that's what I've seen.
When he was at LSU, his thing was the deep ball, right? Like, it was these plays that we would say, that works in college, that works with Brian Thomas running past people. Will that work in college? And in the scheme so far, that's just frustrating. It's frustrating because Cliff started off with Kyler and they were this up-tempo group, but it really was a lot of dink and dunk, a lot of Rondale Moore and wasted plays. So I just hope that it's a little different, that they just cut him loose. But I also wanted you to read this quote. I just pasted this in there for you, Betz, because I don't think Cliff Kingsbury understands who's on his team. It sounds like he's playing fantasy football from like 2020 from this quote. So he was talking about Austin Eckler and the weapons on his team, and this quote just made me die.
It's a good one. He said, I watched him, meaning Eckler, and I'm like, this guy is tremendous. So I'm not sure what it was last year, but he hasn't lost a step. He's as quick and as fast and as strong as I've seen him. Have just been really pleased. This is the important part. I didn't study him in free agency. I didn't think he'd be there, and he was there late. And once we got him, this is unbelievable what we got in this guy, and he is in form, end quote.
I mean, that sounds like a fantasy manager. I was like, you know what? I didn't really study him in my mock drafts. I didn't think he would be there. And, I got Austin Eckler on my team. Like, that's how somebody's going to play fantasy football in 2024, that they have Austin Eckler. So I feel like Cliff...
The horizontal raid is so back.
I feel like everything we want Jaden Daniels to be, if Cliff holds him back, it's not great. And so let's take a quick break and we'll talk about some more quarterbacks. So those were the top two that I think, well, we know they're going to be starters. We understand, who they are as prospects. But I wanted to go a little further. We'll talk about May. I guess we can talk about Penix because, who needs to play him second preseason week?
They've seen enough.
Oh, man.
13 dropbacks.
I got so many messages from people like, what are you guys doing? I was like, I don't know. They don't ask me.
They don't know either.
I would have taken Latu, but what do I know? What we want to see, though, from a rookie quarterback, just historically speaking, is if they start 9 games. It sounds simple, but it matters for fantasy. If you started 9 games, among rookie quarterbacks who hit that threshold in year 1, 75% were a quarterback one within the next 2 years. So just getting on the field, staying with it, eventually you're a pretty good bet to kind of progress and move in that direction. So Drake May, I feel like you've been higher. I mean, I love the tape, but I feel like for even year 1, I feel like you've been higher than me.
Yeah, he's so interesting, right? Because we talked about this a lot during our prospect shows. It's like, man, when you think about a quarterback for fantasy that could hit in a way where it truly is meaningful, meaning like this is a top 10 guy, like we want them to throw deep and we want them to run, especially around the goal line. And if you watch the second preseason game from New England, he showed us exactly what he did at UNC, which is his ability to scramble and run around the goal line, which, by the way, was a designed zone read against the Eagles that he scored a touchdown on, and a beautiful deep ball to Javon Baker, who unfortunately dropped it, but he showed us flashes of like the traits that you get excited about if it hits, where it's going to hit in a way where it matters for fantasy. Not necessarily a game manager, not necessarily a guy that's just going to get you, 14 points a week. Like if it hits, I think he's going to be awesome. The problem is when you think about this New England team, right? Like they've got the lowest scoring expectation in the league as far as like implied points over the course of the regular season. They don't really have true elite weapons. And so, yeah, it's tough to see it for like year 1, but let's say this team drops a top 10 pick wide receiver in there next year, and then all of a sudden you're excited about Drake May again, right? So I like the tools and the talent, but like I'm not expecting Drake May to be my quarterback 2 in fantasy this year, or even a starter for me at any point in the regular season. In redraft leagues or something, like maybe a streamer in the right situation, but you're not expecting that in year 1. So it's just a matter of wait and see. But I think he's flashed in the preseason what we liked so much about him at UNC, which again is the deep ball and the ability to run, especially at the goal line.
So thinking back to Superflex drafts, like rookie drafts, do you feel like you would bump him up a little bit in your mind? Like obviously in hindsight, we get to look at JJ and go, well, we've lost an entire season. So where do you think he fills in Superflex rookie drafts? So, depending on if you need Caleb or Jaden or the top 3 wide receivers, that's kind of like where May is next. Like, do you take him ahead of Worthy, kind of around that 106 range?
Yeah, I think he's somewhere right around 105, 106, depending on your style of how you play Superflex and what you need. But like, obviously, I would still take Caleb and Jaden Daniels over him at quarterback. I would take Marv. I would take Neighbors, who looks incredible. And I think I would take Rome 2 over him. And that's kind of where I would slot him in personally. But and obviously over JJ McCarthy, given that you do lose a year with him, that's where I'm at with May. But if anybody like needed a quarterback and wanted to go in on him at like 104 or something, that's totally fair.
So give me your injury outlook on JJ and what that means for his long-term health.
Dude, he looked good in week 1, I will say, of the preseason. It was a very small sample, but we saw a flash, and now we just wait and see. But yeah, had the meniscus tear in his right knee. The team opted for a full meniscus repair, which is about a 4 to 6 month recovery. So he's going to miss the entire season, which is unfortunate. But it is better for his long-term health. The alternative, if the injury was slightly different, is they were just going to go in and take out a piece of the meniscus. The meniscus is basically like just kind of this thick fibrocartilage tissue inside your knee. It's your shock absorber. It helps with a little bit of stability. So long-term, it helps delay the onset of like knee soreness, pain, stiffness, arthritis. So like, it doesn't really matter a ton for like next year or the year after. But if you're talking about a guy that could play 10 plus years in this league, this is the better situation for him than the other procedure. So long-term health outlook for me is still very, very positive. The question mark is going to be when you enter 2025, off-season mode is like, we still have no idea, right? We still have no idea if this guy can actually play, which kind of hurts from a dynasty perspective just because it takes that year one, possibility to flash or at least flash upside that you're not going to know if it's there.
And it's a player that you can't really guess right. Like you can try to be ahead of the curve and say like, oh, he's going to pop off. I'm going to trade for him while nobody wants him or he's not contributing year one, but we just don't know. And so looking at,
if you're in a rebuild though for Superflex, like I would try to get him, right? I mean, the price probably isn't lower than it. I mean, it's a short NFL career for him, but the price probably isn't lower than it ever has been for a guy like JJ.
I think somebody would still want a first though.
Yeah. And I think that's pretty fair though.
Yeah. I think it's just something you would just wait on and kind of see as you get closer if you want to just hold on to that pick. Bo Nix, I feel like everybody and their mama wants to talk about Bo Nix and how good he's looked. So it's really hard because Sean Payton's system, like he was born for it. That's been the narrative that he's put out in the media. Sean Payton getting the ball out quickly. That's what we saw at Oregon, right? It's just like, okay, screens, RPOs, get stuff out. So what are your thoughts on Nix so far?
Yeah, you mentioned just the fit. I do think it's perfect. And now we're seeing it on film and on the field where they're not asking him to hold onto the ball for 5 seconds and create out of pocket and do all these crazy things, which he can do. He can run. I'm not saying he's not doing that. He's done that and he's looked pretty good running. But he is completing almost 77% of his passes in the preseason. Small sample, obviously, but this dude just set the NCAA record for completion rate, right? Doing this at Oregon with high percentage throws, get the ball out on time. And that's what Sean Payton wants you to do. That's what we're seeing. So I do think it's a dream scenario. The issue for me is like, it's all rosy right now and it's all well and good, but this is still a team that's going to want to run the football. They don't really have top-notch playmakers and weapons right now.
They don't want to play their playmakers.
Is potentially, is it over for Marvin Mims? Like, the guy's not even playing with like the second team at this point. Troy Franklin is like the wide receiver 7 on the depth chart currently. So just when you're thinking about like getting excited about him moving forward with this rookie class and could he build with the young guys, it's like, no, dude, he's throwing to Josh Reynolds and, the boys. Tim Patrick is back. So I don't know we're going to get a ton of fantasy upside, but like just from he looks functional, he can operate the offense. I think everything has looked great so far.
Yeah, I think the team level part is what you just have to pour in and say, in year one, he could be competent. And this team can win with their defense, and they go in that direction. It's kind of like Mac Jones had a pretty good rookie year. We forget about that. They went to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And Mac Jones going to year 2 was one of those players that's like, okay, the weapons aren't great, but he was solid. And boosted his stock. Now people hear that and they're like, why are you bringing up Mac Jones? Why does that matter at all?
McCorkle.
Yeah. I found a stat that was like the only 2 quarterbacks that throwed to their first read more last year were Mac Jones and Trevor Lawrence. So the Jaguars are like, we just want those guys. Like we know what they're doing. They execute the play. They know what they're doing.
This is the play. Throw it to this guy no matter what.
First read targets is a stat that's become more and more popular. Shout out to Fantasy Points Data Suite because I use that pretty much every day. But it does need some clarity of a team. How often do they use first read targets? Not every play is a first read target. So there are certain teams that like Lawrence, and even Bo Nix, where it's like here's the play, execute for us, stay in rhythm. If it's not there, throw it away. And that's fine. That can work in the NFL. But when Josh Reynolds is your dude, like, it's just not going to work.
I mean, Cortland Sutton is the actual dude, but behind Cortland Sutton.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
And even like Greg Dulcich, who I've loved in Dynasty getting for cheap. It's like, is he going to just split time with Troutman? That's probably.
And Lucas Kroll, probably. All three of those guys.
Lucas Kroll. All right, let's go to running backs because it's kind of a dry and barren land, if we're honest. Like every year we give the stat where at least 2 rookie running backs end up in the top 24. It's just like clockwork. It's happened since 2012. I feel like this might be the year where it doesn't, especially when you look at the roles. So Jonathan Brooks, we're not going to spend too much time unless you have a medical update or take. Like when can we expect him to at least like start getting some touches?
I mean, they've said the plan is for him to likely miss a few weeks. Is that 3, 4, 5 weeks? Who knows? So like, you're already looking at October, and then you're asking yourself, okay, now do they do the 3 to 4 week ramp up period where he's like seeing 8 to 10 touches a game, and then like maybe in November is he seeing 15 plus touches? That's kind of what I'm expecting for like the trajectory of how the season goes. We also have to remember, like, Dave Canales, his job is not in question, right? Like, he's got a free roll this year and then they figure it out next year again. This team is not trying to win the Super Bowl this year. Like, if the rehab isn't going perfectly, if the team is 1-8, like, you know, like, they're not going to like try to rush him out there and be like, we got to get this guy 20 touches. So I think that you should expect a very, very slow start with the upside of like, he's healthy, they're rolling, they want to get him the ball, to also the reality of like, why are we pushing our future starting running back when we don't need to, sort of thing. So wide range of outcomes on Jonathan Brooks. We both agreed, I think. We like the college tape.
Yes.
This is a straightforward ACL, not a complicated one. So like, by all accounts, next year in the offseason, he should be fully healthy. We love RBs in year 2 off the ACL. So like next year, I'm back in on Jonathan Brooks, in all formats. But I think he will hold value no matter what happens this year, just because we all know entering next year, it is his backfield.
Yeah. I think in the pre-draft process, Jason and Mike really liked Trey Benson more than me. And I like Trey Benson, but Brooks was kind of the guy that I liked. I wanted to spend some time on Jalen Wright because I feel like we haven't really done that. I've started to do a little search of going back through our show docs and for the main show and Dynasty. And it's like there are certain players that we just never bring up, not on purpose. It's just we miss them. So for instance, the least talked about good player in fantasy this year that we've talked about, I did some research. We never talked about Kenneth Walker. Like we brought him up maybe 3 times from like February all the way through. It's just, he's right in that spot where it's like, we're excited about the wide receivers. We're excited about the new coordinator. We know what he is. And so we just haven't brought him up as much. So Jalen Wright was one of those guys that I was excited to see him on the list.
Yeah. I mean, if you wanted to see some explosive plays from him in the preseason, you saw it. Now, he did not play this past week in week 2, dealing with a minor injury, they said. But in week 1, dude flashed 10 carries, 55 yards, and a touchdown. So, I mean, this guy is showing you kind of what you want to see in a backfield that we know will produce fantasy points when you got opportunities. Of course, he's behind Devon Achane, who we love, and Raheem Mostert, but Achane missed time last year. Mostert has a super long injury history. He's coming off a career high in touches at the age of 32. I think we should expect some level of regression for Raheem Mostert. And then you have just this contingent upside of like, if either of those guys go down or miss time, you know Jalen Wright is getting touches in an offense we want, and he showed he can do it in this fit. The way he fits Mike McDaniel's scheme is perfect. And this is a guy that ran 4.38 at the NFL Combine. So I know that coming out of Tennessee, myself included, but people had questions of like, how good is the production? Because we talked about this a lot last year with Jalen Hyatt in that offense. Everything is so spread out. Like he's running into light boxes on every single play. But also like in this Dolphins offense, like what do you tell me? Defenses aren't going to focus on Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Obviously they are, right? It's like you're kind of getting the same situation here with Jalen Wright. So I'm in if anything would happen to Devon Achane or Raheem Mostert.
What do you think the price is right now? Because I feel like I don't want to give up more than a second. And if you're the manager that drafted him, I don't know, in the late second, it's like, well, why do I need a second right now? I'm going to just see if this guy pops off. So it feels like it's one of those players that I want on my team, but the price is kind of like stuck with players who are just like, hey, I'm just going to see if he's the dude. and overtakes the other guys.
Yeah, he's interesting because like you're definitely not paying more than that to get him. I mean, I guess you could throw like a third on to be like, I'll give you a late second and a third, and like let me get this guy that has upside. Like that would be fine, I think. But yeah, you're not gonna if you drafted him in the late second or early third, like you're not trying to actively move on. So maybe it's a wait and see if another buying window presents itself. Like maybe in the first month, Mostert's healthy, Achane's rolling, like he's kind of the forgotten guy. That might be a good time to pounce on Jalen Wright.
You have Ray Davis in here, and I'm mad that Jason isn't here because he's always been a Ray Davis guy. Ray Davis is also the oldest player ever in the history of the league. But we like Ray Davis because he's a younger version of Latavius Murphy. Like that's really like fall in the end zone. You're getting these carries inside the 10. So what did you see in preseason week 2? And can he carve out like a flex type role? Or it's like Murray, as annoying as he was, like had weeks where he just fell into the end zone and he worked for people that were desperate for running back.
Yeah. So what's interesting about Ray Davis is that like from the analytical profile stuff is like, this dude is old as dirt. He played at 9 different schools in college. I'm exaggerating. Played a ton of years in college. Like historically, those guys just like don't work. But like short term, I think Ray Davis has value. Like talk about one of the top RB2s on a depth chart in a good offense across the league. Like obviously Blake Corum's up there, some other guys, but like Ray Davis is kind of close to the top of the list. Now the problem is that he's competing with not only James Cook for touches, but if he does get the role, Josh Allen at the goal line for rushing scores. So like, I still think there's a pretty capped ceiling, but if he does get opportunity, he flashed in week 2 and looked the part. Four missed tackles forced was number 1 among all backs last week per PFF in rookie usage. 40 yards after contact, that was 3rd. Like he just looked good. Now, part of that was against Steelers backups and all that sort of thing, so you don't want to read into it too much, but just the eye test, he definitely passed it for me.
All right, let's put some of these rookie running backs in order of who you'd want. So we talked about Jalen Wright, Ray Davis, and then Braylon Allen, Marshawn Lloyd, Blake Corum, Will Shipley, Kamani Vidal. You don't have to say all of them, but one, I'm glad he's alive. Kamani Vidal.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness.
That must have been a funny thing to leave, be gone for a couple weeks and like, hey, what happened to this dude?
Dude, all of a sudden he was off the projected 53-man roster based off the Athletic. And then now we're back, baby. He's back.
Kamani's like, I never left. I never thought I thought I was making this team. He did look good in his snaps against backups. That's yes. The thing you have to always do when people post stuff. So would you want Jalen Wright the most out of all those?
So the names you mentioned, Jalen Wright, Ray Davis, Braylon Allen, Will Shipley, Marshawn Lloyd, Blake Corum. I think Jalen Wright, if the situation's break right for him, which you're not only having to account for like a Devon Achane missed time or Raheem Mostert retires next year, like something, but like you kind of need 2 guys to get out of the way. But if it hits, I think it's going to hit massively. I think I would have him personally over Ray Davis. I think I'd take him definitely over Kamani Vidal, obviously. I would probably take him over Blake Corum, and that's kind of where it gets tricky for me because Braylon Allen has also looked awesome. Yes. Breece Hall is like, what, a top 2, top 3 running back in the league right now. So he's not coming off the field often. But if Breece goes down, Braylon Allen has shown us that he can play and he looks pretty good catching the ball too. Like they're getting him involved out of the backfield, couple screens, couple checkdowns, stuff like that he can do it all. I think he could be a 3-down back if they ask him to, if Breece misses time. So that's kind of where I draw the line. Like he's right there with Braylon Allen for me.
Yeah, I think Allen has the highest upside out of any guys we mentioned if he had the opportunity. I think Wright is probably right behind him. And then
where you like Marshawn Lloyd?
I just traded him away in a league.
Oh, what'd you get for him?
We had like a combo deal. I need to look it up, but Jeremy and I in Ballers Dynasty League have Josh Jacobs. And so we said, I get it. We can insure ourselves or we can go in on this season and make some trades. So that's what we decided to do. I got to look up what we actually did though. It was like 3 or 4 weeks ago and I don't even know what day it is right now.
That's fair. Also, just for everyone that would like to know, Kyle, the current state of where he's at and how much he loves you all in this podcast, he told me before the show, if anything goes south, I do have a puke bucket right here beside me. So I can't blame you for not. It yet. Thank goodness. Yeah, don't watch on YouTube. My goodness. Thank goodness that you're able to be here with us. I can't blame you for not remembering the trade. But the vibes are not good, man, right? Like, hamstring injury for a rookie. They're talking a lot about AJ Dillon, like an uncomfortable amount about AJ Dillon. And I'm still not like ready to like jump ship and be like, oh my gosh, this isn't going to work. But we saw last year with Kendry, right? Like, if things don't go well right out of the gate and it lingers, and then like they just can't trust you, like that's how your career gets off to a bad start. Again, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but like, Marshawn, let's get on the field. Let's stack a few good weeks together and see if we can get this thing back on track. But yeah, it has not been the best last few weeks for Marshawn Lloyd.
All right, let's take a quick break and we'll talk about these wide receivers. All right, we're coming down the home stretch. What can we talk about with Marvin Harrison Jr. that would not cause us to, for me to flip this table right now? Because although my body feels a certain way, my body also feels another way because I love Marvin Harrison. I have him in Dynasty. I'm excited about him, and I can't really tell you anything so far for preseason.
There's no need. He's obviously the second best wide receiver on his team behind Greg Dortch.
Of course.
Based off Twitter. If you're on there, that's what you'll see. But no, in all seriousness, there's nothing to talk about here. This guy is going to be great. And everything that I've seen from just like a couple clips, he's just like dusting dudes in one-on-one, looks every bit the part. So can't wait for week 1, man.
With Malik Neighbors, the conversation of the last couple of weeks has kind of been the chicken or egg. Like, is it Daniel Jones' fault that the Giants have been a bad offense, or has the offense been bad because they don't have the wide receivers? Like, it's just been Darius Slayton, the only wide receiver to finish in the top 36 since Jones came aboard. So, I mean, you got to go back and forth. I understand with preseason, you're going to see 2 picks and go, oh, well, it's Daniel Jones' fault. So I wonder what the ride is going to be like this year, because we have seen highly drafted wide receivers get peppered with targets and finish lower than what we wanted, like Garrett Wilson. So that is in the range of outcomes where a year or 2 in, you look up and you go, Malik Neighbors just saw over 300 targets. He was the man. And yet he finished as the wide receiver 24 and the wide receiver, 30, which is kind of like what Wilson's been hanging out doing. So that is in the range of outcomes. And I don't know if that's being baked in as well.
Maybe. I think, but Malik Neighbors to me, like, again, small sample, but we love the tape. If Marvin Harrison Jr. was not in this class, he would be the talk of the town. The no question 101 in every single draft that you're in, maybe even above some of the quarterbacks. Like, he's just that good. And now he goes to a depth chart where, like you said, there's nobody. So this offense is going to flow through him. I still think Brian Daboll is a very good coach. I think he's a good schemer. I think Malik Neighbors is going to see an obscene target share this year. The problem is those are not the best quality targets. And
correct.
You mentioned, like, let's not overreact to the preseason, but like Daniel Jones is still doing Daniel Jones things, like the Jalen Petrie interception. Buddy, like, you're not putting yourself in a good start here to open the year and defend yourself as like the Giants quarterback of the future. I think that ship has sailed. I think the front office knows it. So like in year 1, is Malik Neighbors going to be a top 5 fantasy guy, a top 10 fantasy guy? Maybe not, because I don't think touchdowns are going to be there. But I have no concerns that Malik Neighbors is going to be an awesome NFL star for years, maybe with a quarterback upgrade as early as next year.
Yeah, there's a couple of routes that teams in the NFL do where they'll either take the pass catcher first and then follow it up by just straight up stinking and then they get a quarterback, or vice versa, where you saw the Cardinals, they took Kyler, they tried it with Hopkins, they tried it with AJ Green, and then they eventually got to Marv.
I forgot about that.
Poor AJ Green. He showed up in a spreadsheet the other day as like literally the worst efficiency season of any wide receiver of the last like decade.
That was a rough last 2 years in the league, man.
God, he was so
Let's remember the
coming.
good times. He was great.
Georgia boy. So
had to throw that in there.
I always got to. So let's talk about Odunze really quickly. We saw the highlight stuff. We saw that Keenan, unfortunately, looks a step slower from what our eyeballs tell us. In NFL games, though, man, this guy's going to put on his helmet and just go. So don't doubt Keenan against zone. I just love the way that their team is set up. I talked about Caleb earlier, but it's really clear everybody's role, right? It's like DJ Moore crushes man coverage. If you try to do one-on-one stuff, he's going to be a yak guy. Keenan's always been a zone beater. Last year, he led the entire league in receptions per game against zone, and then we know what Rome can do over the top. Is there going to be more nuance to his game, though, for fantasy, where it's like, yes, you get the big play, you're happy, but like there's no way you're starting Rome and Dunze week 1 against the Titans with any level of confidence of how it's going to work. You're rolling the dice when you do that.
For fantasy?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think the most realistic outcome here is the first month to 6 weeks. You see flashes, but like not enough playing time, not enough routes, maybe not enough targets if Keenan Allen is still out there in 12 personnel sets. But to me, like, it's such a good bet in fantasy where there's a top 10 pick. Again, in any other class without Marv or Neighbors, like, this is the dude that you want in fantasy. And if Keenan really is not who he was, which from a top-down perspective, like 32 years old is when the
You
cliff
shut your mouth.
really comes. He's, for the first time in his career, changing teams, going to play with a rookie quarterback. Like, there are ways where Keenan fails this year. We just got to be honest about that. And obviously the Hard Knocks vibes and training camp vibes are not ideal. But if that all does happen, and Rome is who we think Rome is, like, he's going to overtake him in 12 personnel sets, I think, over the course of time. So yeah, in fantasy, like, don't be disappointed in the first month if he's not a locked-in starter. But like, if we get to November and this guy is a no question, you put him in your lineup every single week type of play, I'm not going to be surprised by that at all.
Yeah. And don't hear what I'm trying to say about Keenan. I love him as a player, but things are setting. Same way, like, Julio has been my favorite player. It's like when you saw it was gone, it was gone. And you wanted to hold on to a lot of stuff. So I agree with you in 12 personnel, which it seems like that's what they want to do. Like Kmet and Everett, which they did a lot in Seattle last year, and they actually had some success. So maybe I'm not a play caller in the NFL. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
Maybe you don't. What's interesting about Seattle, we talked about that a lot, through the course of the offseason, is like, from a season-long perspective, they were like right in the middle of pack of 11 personnel usage. So like, you look back and you're like, oh, they ran a lot of three-wide receivers. But on first downs, they were bottom 12 off the top of my head, don't quote me, in the league in three-wide receiver set usage. So like last year, Waldron was like, we want to play 2 tight ends. That's what we want to do. But man, I don't necessarily agree with that. Now, Chicago's defense, I think, is going to be awesome this year. They were great down the stretch last year. They have looked good so far in the preseason. They've got good pass rushers. Like, they got dudes. Their secondary's got some great playmakers. Like, if they're able to kind of control the way they want to and like run a ton of 12, you could be disappointed, I think, with like 2 of the pass catchers in Chicago. Who does that end up being over the course of time? Who knows? But like I said, Rome's talent is there. We've seen him flash already in the preseason. I'd be very, very excited to have him on my Dynasty squad.
All right, let's talk Keon Coleman, because I'm getting mixed signals. I see his preseason snap counts and it's like, okay, this dude's a starter. Then what they verbalize is often like, there's just a lot of stuff he's got to learn. It's this weird thing where when Keon Coleman came out, we kind of said this is a raw prospect who we thought could function as a big slot. They made it very clear he's not a big slot. He's the X. And he never really commanded targets at college. He just had big plays. And so that a lot of times in the NFL, it's hard to all of a sudden be a player that commands it when there are other players like Curtis Samuel and Dalton Kincaid and James Cook are going to get a lot of targets in this offense. So what is your read so far on Coleman and what he can do in year 1?
Yeah, I don't know that my stance has really changed too much on him. I think it's still very boom bust, where like if it hits, I think it's going to be awesome. But I do still see a world where it's like, he's not really the best separator in the world, and this passing volume isn't as elite as it was for the last 3 years. Like, the offense identity has shifted to be more run focused. Allen's still running a ton at the goal line. Like, how many touchdown passes is Allen going to throw again this year? So I think that there's a world that exists where it's like, what were we doing? Like, just take the guy that's number 1 for Josh Allen and like, it'll work. And also there's a range where it's like, his game didn't really translate to the NFL. He was a couple of nice weeks had a touchdown, like 50 yards on a touchdown, and it was great. But like, on the course of the season, you were kind of just meh with it. So I think there's a wide range of outcomes on Keon Coleman. But I can't argue that like the path kind of seems to be pretty clear for playing time right out of the gate, right? Curtis Samuel, turf toe, MVS left last week with the neck injury. He's a multi-week injury. Not that he matters a ton, but like, every time MVS comes on the field, he's taking snaps away from someone, right? Matt Collins has never really earned targets in his career. Like, he's going to be on the field a bunch, and it doesn't really matter. But Chase Claypool's on IR, and he's done for the year. So like, the path is so clear for him to just be a every down player right away. So yeah, we'll see. I don't really know where I stand yet.
I did get some Chase Claypool love this offseason, where I mean, it's like everybody on their team is like talking about a player they're excited about. It's like, oh man, I think we're sleeping on Chase Claypool. And the team was like, you have a toe thing?
No, you're not.
Oh, you're not on the team anymore. Like, oh, your toe issue is so offensive to us, we don't want you around anymore.
You get that out of here.
It's kind of sad for a player that rookie year was so fun, man. One of my best DFS memories, Chase Claypool 4-touchdown game. I did want to give you a couple of metrics to think about with these rookie wide receivers. We have some resources on the website and in the Dynasty Pass where we talked about different thresholds for wide receivers to hit in year one. And if you're a day one pick, you need to be around 20%. Like you need to be just killing it. You're talking about Neighbors. Like Neighbors is going to command a 25% target share or more. Like I feel like 25% might be his floor.
Yeah.
So when it comes to these wide receivers from day 2 and day 3 that we're not really spending as much time, we've talked about on other episodes, you need to see a targets per out run number above 14%. If they're not doing that in year one, there are some massive red flags. Quentin Johnston, those kind of things. And since 2014, Nelson Aguilar, your boy, who the Eagles once again spent a pick on, he's the only one with a top 36 who was below it. So like, remember Nelson Aguilar did nothing as a rookie and then eventually just like popped up for a good season. You need to hit that. And then also yards per out run. We've talked about this. Devontae Adams is the only one to return from the grave under 1 yards per out run. So keep those things in mind when you're assessing your rookie wide receiver on your team. But I wanted to talk about tight ends really quickly before you and I are going to quickly announce our Dynasty My Guys. A couple of guys that we're just kind of bullish on compared to their price. So at tight end, what are you looking for in year one, and why is it basically just do what Sam Laporta did?
I'm looking for Sam Laporta in year one, and if I don't get that, I want Dalton Kincaid, okay? Nothing else will do. You just want to see, like, over the course of this season with a lot of these rookie tight ends, and really not like a lot of them this class, because it's pretty much Brock Bowers and the Senator is kind of like the guys I have my eye on. Maybe Theo Johnson, depending on what happens in New York, but like you just want to see yak ability, the ability to create with the ball in your hands, and I think, ability to earn routes over the course of time. Because unfortunately at tight end, a lot of these guys in fantasy, like we're only starting 12 of them, hopefully. If you play in a league, otherwise you're a sicko. And we only care about like the top 6 or 7, like maybe the top 5 most years as far as like actual difference makers. So you need to have routes, a path to ability to create with the ball in your hands after the catch. And if guys aren't showing that in year one, don't panic, because they take time to develop, but also just be realistic. Like that guy is probably not turning into a fantasy star over the course of time. So look for warning signs and signals, but in this class, I'm not expecting much outside of Brock Bowers and maybe the Senator.
Yeah. Another stat that you can give if you're looking at your dynasty tight end year one is like, how often are they pass blocking? And it's a double-edged sword, because you can look at pass blocking as, I want them to be a good NFL player. Like, I don't want the team to be like, this guy sucks at pass blocking. You also don't want there to be pass plays where he's blocking and not running a route. So over the last decade, you want them to be on fewer than 20 or 12% of their snaps. And that's where you get a lot of these top 3 seasons. Like Mark Andrews is not pass blocking anymore. He's just not doing it, which is great. I don't want him to do that. So with Bowers, so far we've seen like a pretty fun usage. Like 9 out of his 14 snaps had 2 tight ends on the field, like Getty said. He was in line. He was in the backfield for 3 snaps, wide and slot. And you remember, like on our prospect profiles and everything we did back in March, this dude like can run the ball. Like they were using him in jet sweeps and screens. So far, I think I'm encouraged by the way that they're using him, even though I don't know how Luke Getzy has a job.
Yeah, I was surprised, honestly, like pleasantly surprised in week 1 of the preseason. I don't think Brock Bowers played this past week, but in week 1, like he was everywhere. He was in line, he was in the slot, he was out wide, he was in the backfield for a couple, and like giving him design touches. So it's like maybe we need to give Luke more credit than he deserves. I'm encouraged by that. Again, super small sample, but also like let's just be realistic about just the short-term outlook of like, it is Gardner Minshew and or AOC over the course of time, and Devontae Adams is still there. So it's like, could he be the number 2 on the team as the year goes on? Definitely. But like, is he ever going to be the top option right now? Probably not, as long as Devontae is there. But as long as Brock shows you some level of excitement, like I said, yak ability, earning targets as a rookie, like moving forward into next year, I'll be very, very excited to have him.
What would you say his ceiling is for a target share? Let's say Devontae Adams is there. What's his ceiling and target share in year one?
I mean, it's going to be, I think, a pretty low volume pass offense. So you don't want to get misled with a high percentage of the targets. That might not be a high number of actual targets, if that makes sense. But I could see him earning 20% of the targets.
20% is my number too.
If things break right. But Jacoby Myers, man, like, he's not the sexiest name in the world, but like, he's a pretty good NFL player. So 20% seems like a capped ceiling for me.
Let's talk about the Senator really quickly. Ben Sinnott, he kind of showcased some yak ability week 1 of preseason. He had a big catch. Zach Ertz is going to be annoying. Do you remember last year in week 1, he had 10 targets, led all tight ends in football?
10 targets, 6 catches, 21 yards. You know why that hurts so bad, Kyle? Because if you're with us in UDK Plus and the DFS Pass, we have props every week that we bet. We said this guy is coming off a torn ACL. He's 34 or 3 years old or whatever he is. Like, he might run a handful of routes under 20 and a half. There's no way he's getting 21 yards. 6 catches for 21 yards. It took 10 targets to get 21 yards. Oh, that was such a painful beat. But yeah, he is going to be there, and he's going to be very annoying for the first month or two.
Yeah, Ertz, nothing like Ertz burying you in the prop streets bets. His longest catch was 6 yards that game.
Love to see it.
Big downfield threat, Zach Ertz. But I think it's going to be a slow burn. I think eventually they're going to realize that this player is just way more explosive with Ben Sinnott. But man, I just worry. My biggest worry is just like, are they going to give their players a bunch of screens? Like, we liked the screens last year with Trey McBride in Arizona. If that's how they're building their offense, the horizontal raid, that's just wasting what they have, right?
Maybe. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. The other thing about the Senator that I like, and maybe if you're a Jahan Dotson truther, you don't like this take, but like,
never left.
I don't know. I don't know what Jahan Dotson is anymore. I don't think anybody does.
No one
but
knows.
Like,
he doesn't even know who he is.
After his rookie year, I don't think we would say like there's a world that exists where he's just like a wide receiver 3 for an offense. Like, we thought he could develop into wide receiver 2, locked into every route, be that guy. And now there is a range where it's like, maybe Ben Sinnott is the second read in this option behind Terry McLaurin. Like, I think that possibility exists over the course of time. Be patient, because it's not going to happen in the first month, but he's flashed in the preseason. We liked his college film. I think they could get him on the field more than we think.
All right, one more segment.
Dynasty My Guys.
All right. This was tough for me because it would be easy for me to look at players that I just really like, that are young, that are exciting in Dynasty, and go, like, Marvin Harrison's my Dynasty My Guy. Like, cool. We're all on
Fine,
board.
I'll take Neighbors.
Yeah. And just do that. Instead, I think I was looking for a player that's undervalued, that I think people have kind of just moved on from. And so I want to throw out Chris Godwin, because this year it is going to be different, him moving to the slot. He led the Buccaneers in receptions last year. He saw 130 targets, by the way. The biggest issue for Chris Godwin is his touchdown totals. Over the last 5 seasons, this is how they've gone: 9, 7, 5, 3, 2. Are you noticing any trend here?
This year, 1 touchdown.
1. That's all he's got. So he actually had more 10 zone targets than Evans, which is another stat that I was like, how is this possible? So I went back and watched a lot of Godwin stuff, and he is not just some dinky slot wide receiver. Like, he's been a yak guy with Brady in the past. He's been a downfield guy too. So hopefully they don't use him as just a, short area JSN kind of like low ADOT guy. I think Chris Godwin is undervalued, and it wouldn't shock me if he finished as a top 20 wide receiver this year, just based on volume. And we know he can see volume a ton, 1,000+ receiving yards in 4 of his last 5 seasons. So I know he's a Penn State boy, so I'm tugging at your heartstrings here, but I just think he's undervalued in an offense that is changing. And I think that Rachaad White and Evans changed the most, where this is a good thing for Godwin.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting because, the volume earning ability of Godwin has always been there in these last couple of years, even when he hasn't been the same player for fantasy. If he just keeps putting up these stat lines of like 75 to 85 catches, 1,000 to 1,100 yards, but instead of 2 or 3 touchdowns, he gives you 6 or 7, you're talking about a guy that at that point is like a back end wide receiver 2 in fantasy. Yet I don't think I've heard like anybody talk about Chris Godwin like all offseason. So if you want to think about a guy that's out of sight, out of mind for a lot of people that could give you a big return on your investment, throw a late second at someone, a mid-second.
Could you get him for a second?
I think so. If you're a contender, send that to get yourself like a wide receiver 3 for your starting lineup. That makes a ton of sense to me.
All right, Betz, give me yours.
I chose to stick with the theme here with the rookies. One guy that we did not talk about yet.
I did a terrible job informing you.
Yeah, you really did. But I want to talk about a lot right now is Xavier Worthy, man. The usage in the preseason so far has been so encouraging. I don't want to overreact to 2 weeks and a small sample size, but what we've seen so far is the dude can play and he's going to have a role right out of the gate, which that was not the case with Rashee Rice last year. Remember, it was like week 8, week 9, we're like, when is this guy getting on the field? He's showing so much on a per route basis that eventually he did. Andy Reid historically has not done this with his rookies. I think they don't have a choice with Xavier Worthy this year. Just get him on the field right away. There's a world where like things just break beautifully for Xavier Worthy, not only this year, but like next year. You think about this year, if Kelsey snaps keep going down and or maybe he walks away next year, Rashee Rice probably gets suspended next year. Marquise Brown is not on this team next year. Like you're looking at potentially Pat Mahomes' number 1 option, number 2 option at worst moving forward. And you have to remember, this isn't just like a here and now thing. Like we liked Xavier Worthy. Now you thought he was slow as molasses.
He could be faster. He could.
I like the tape. And, going back to our priors, like he wasn't just like a only speed guy wide receiver. Like his college production profile was good. He was an early declare, round 1 draft capital. Like he really does check every box. And I think some people still have size concerns. I don't in today's NFL with how these guys are moved around. And to me, that was what's so encouraging in week 2 of the preseason. Andy Reid was getting this guy everywhere. We saw him get jammed at the line. People made fun of him on Twitter because he got just bodied at the line of scrimmage a couple weeks ago. And Andy Reid said, let's just get this guy moving before the snap. And that won't happen. And we saw amazing stuff. So I think Worthy is one of those guys that if you feel like you have to overpay a little bit right now to get him, it will not be an overpay in 6-7 months.
In a 1 quarterback league, after the top 3 wide receivers, is he the 104?
That's where I would have him personally.
Rookie. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember this from JJ Zacharyson. He said this, that like after the combine, everyone's losing their mind. It's like, you should have liked Xavier Worthy because of his early breakout age and his usage all over the field from the most creative team in the NFL. Like that should already have been something that you should be on board with. So I don't mind that at all. I've come around. I've changed. I'm a different man now. So
you think he's fast now?
Yeah, dude. Told you.
You've been here since day 1.
Yeah. We'll rewrite history if we need to. All right, Betz. That's going to do it for us. Sign us off.
Yes, sir. Fun show. One of the ballers will be back next week. And hopefully Kyle will also be back in full strength without his puke bucket. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great week.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. If you want to take your dynasty skills to the next level, check out thefantasyfootballers.com.